every morning with drive. Being on the grind, know I had to survive. We had to win. Started from the dirt and the rubble. I had to be the needle that was popping your bubble.
Hello and welcome into the Rookie Prospect Profile Series, a Zilla Fantasy Elite production. Today we're going to be looking at wide receiver Jacob Cowing in the rookie wide receiver machine learning models. Will Jacob Cowing shine bright or falter in our fantasy forecast? Stick around and uncover the verdict from our cutting edge machine learning models, which do 1,000 simulations for each season of the prospect's first 4 years in the NFL. Jacob Cowing was drafted number 135 overall by the San Francisco 49ers. They come into the league having played college football for UTEP before transferring to Arizona University. Got a very interesting profile here, one that might shock you, especially when you compare him to his teammate Ricky Pearsall, who went in the first round. What does a Ricky Pearsall profile look like? Well, go look at the video here. If you haven't seen it already, then stay tuned for the Jacob Cowing one. Very interesting, maybe a flip-flop of what we expected. All right, Jacob Cowing comes in at 5'8", 168 pounds, so he's slight of frame, decently enough athletic, 36 vertical jump, 119 broad jump, not super crazy there, but he did run a 4.38 in the 40-yard dash and have a pretty solid cone drill and a not as great 20-yard shuttle. So keep that in mind. 9-inch hands, nothing to write home about, but the one interesting thing, his college dominator rating in our database is 61.4 at his time in UTEP and a 36.8 college target share, which are elite numbers for sure for a wide receiver. So how is the machine learning model going to take into account his draft pick being that low, the smaller size, and then maybe some of these good college numbers? He did have an 18.6 breakout age as well. Let's go see what kind of profile we're looking at here. I think this one may shock some people. Now he's pushing, I think, the 19th wide receiver off the board at this point, coming into year one, especially with a round one wide receiver in front of him. Debo and Ayuk still there, George Kittle still there, CMC still there for San Francisco. This is probably going to be on the lower end of his outcomes in year one, but we're looking at just above 5 for his mean and median, 5.1 and 5.02 respectively, ranked number 16 and number 15 in the class. Maximum output of 12.15 is the 13th best ceiling. So we say, hey, maybe this guy's a little bit above average, especially considering he was about the 19th wide receiver drafted. Let's go peek at some of these mean and median outcomes for him and then the maximum range at 12. These guys are all hanging around the 4.8 to 5.2 fantasy points per game range in the last 11 draft classes in their rookie season. Kelvin Harmon, Jalen Strong, Chris Conley, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Deontay Burnett, Equinemius St. Brown, Vincent Smith, Zay Jones, Tyquan Thornton, J.J. Nelson, Olamide Zaccheaus, Quintez Cephas, Marcel Aitman, Marquise Goodwin, Paul Richardson. Not a ton of fantasy goodness in there. I don't think a single one of those people besides Zay Jones ever hit double digits in their next 3 seasons, and that was Zay Jones in his year 2 at 10.2. So not a very inspiring list of people here. Again, not an unexpected outcome for Jacob Cowing in year 1. Later draft pick, they already took somebody in the first round ahead of him. Tons of talent ahead of him. Maximum output at 12.15. We'll just briefly go over that. That would be top 35 in the last 11 seasons or last 11 draft classes, but you're looking in that range: DK Metcalf, Christian Watson, Cooper Kupp, Darius Slayton, T. Higgins, Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill, and his teammate now, Debo Samuel, all within half to a full fantasy point per game range of his maximum output. I don't see a path to him hitting that in year 1 by any means. I'd be more interested in probably the 10th or 25th percentile outcome for him in this year 1. But as I said, this profile may shock some people. Let's get into year 2 here, and we see a pretty healthy jump here and kind of almost like a 3-peak approach here in terms of his outcome. We got 1 peak if you're looking at the graph in the bottom left. That's in between his 10th and 25th percentile outcome. We have another peak that's just above the 25th percentile outcome in between that and the median. And then another one right at that median, the 75th percentile outcome. So Kind of an interesting thing here. We do see the mean and median jump up to 7.5 to 7.6 for the mean and median there. Those are the 13th best ranks in the class. Maximum output at 13.81 is the 11th best. Again, this guy was close to the 20th wide receiver off the board. We see him besting those marks in terms of the year 2 ranks. In this particular profile, we see a little bit more spread out where he's got a low floor, but he's also got a potentially high ceiling. I think machine learning model taking into context some of that college profile number, the speed, college dominator rating, early breakout age. I think maybe it's saying there's a wide range of outcomes here, but he really could hit a ceiling outcome and have some pretty solid play. So let's go look year 2, what do those numbers look like at the 7 to 8 range. We see quite a few people in between 7.07, which is Khalil Shakir, and then 8 fantasy points per game, which is Anthony Miller, Devontae Adams, Justin Hunter, and Josh Dotson. So starting at Khalil Shakir, Russell Gage, Traquan Smith, Kendrick Bourne, Rico Gafford, Corey Coleman, Jahan Dotson, Paris Campbell, Corey Brown, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Gabriel Davis, Laviska Shenault, Josh Dotson, Justin Hunter, Devontae Adams, Anthony Miller. So that's the range of outcomes. It's saying in year 2, we see some pretty interesting names in there. Some of those guys, and we obviously know that became fantasy studs at some point. Getting into that maximum output, 13.81, pretty solid number. You're looking at top 35 there. John Brown and Kenny Golladay tied for 35th best there at 13.8. Also in that range, Tyrell Williams, Sterling Shepard, Darnell Mooney, a little bit above it, Cortland Sutton, Michael Pittman, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper. You get some really, really good names just above that particular mark. Again, this is year 2. Hey, if they trade one of those top end guys, let's say Debo heads out, maybe you get a guy like Jacob Cowing gets a little bit more involved, get an injury to Kittle, maybe CMC isn't as involved, or he's out the door in 2 years. We could start seeing him realize a maximum output there of the 13.81. But in reality, the mean and median probably a better outcome here for him in year 2. Let's get into that year 3 profile. Let's start kind of building his entire profile here for the first 4 years in the league. We see him take a little dip down here in year 3, 6.7 range for fantasy points per game. Ranks here are 15th best. We see a lot of, that's actually his best range here is the 15th there. He's got one of the worst minimums at negative 0.27, maximum 25th best at 12.82, also below where he was drafted. And the CV fairly strong at 31.9 is the 13th best in the class. Let's go take a peek at those year 3 wide receivers. Who is in between, 6.5 to 7.5. All of these players fall in between 6.4 and 7.6 fantasy points per game during their 3rd season in the league. Kendrick Bourne, Richie James, Keelan Cole, Anthony Miller, Chase Claypool, Tutu Atwell, Chester Rogers, Van Jefferson, Marquez Wilson, Josh Dotson, I think we've seen him a couple times now, Traquan Smith, Tyler Lockett, John Brown, Bryce Butler. Seeing Tyler Lockett and John Brown in there kind of promising. Chase Claypool started out hot and then just got worse throughout the next 3 seasons. But really, other than that, not super inspiring list of people here. That maximum output, 12.82, one of the lower ranked ones, I guess, in the class. 25th best. We're right in that range. Jalen Strong hit 12.8 in his 3rd season. Terry McLaurin, Geronimo Allison, Allen Robinson, Kelvin Benjamin, right below that. And then a little bit above it, T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, his current teammate, Michael Pittman, Jerry Jeudy. So kind of interesting list there if he can hit his ceiling. Again, 3 years from now, what is it going to look like? Is he even going to be on the 49ers? Who knows? But kind of saying he takes a step back here in year 3, but where this profile gets really interesting and why I told you guys to stick with it is that year 4 outcome. Very, very shocking here when this came through. Year 4 outcome really projecting him to have a huge breakout, probably one of the biggest late breakouts that are in the draft class this season. So CV at 24.2, it's pretty confident in this result. That is the 5th best CV in the class on the year 4 models. And we see his ranking here, minimum at 5th best overall, mean and median 8th best. So cresting the top 10 here in terms of what he looks like in year 4. That maximum, though, not as high as it would like to be. It's 15th best, which is still above where he was drafted at 14.46, but very interesting profile here to see him crest into the top 10 despite being a round 4 draft choice, drafted in the 130s. So that's looking, almost at the end of round 4 a lot of times, with the round 3 being 100. So very, very interesting to see these numbers pop up. So let's go look at who was at 8.2, maybe in between 7.5 and 8.5 range during their 4th season in the league, and see if there's anybody that looks a little interesting in that particular range. All in between 7.4 and 8.56, we see Philip Dorsett, KJ Osborne, Josh Reynolds, Ryan Grant, Hunter Renfrow, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Traquan Smith, Cam Meredith, Terrence Williams, Dante Pettis, and Darius Slayton. A mix of people that are relatively disappointing outside of Hunter Renfrow in those first few seasons. But we've seen guys like Josh Reynolds kind of stick around the league, and maybe that's a similar profile that you can expect from Jacob Cowing here, despite, their size differences. Maybe he's somebody that just kind of hangs around there and is a flex player when you got a ton of bye weeks in a really deep league. Getting him for the mean and median output here, that maximum output at 14.46, while it is one of the lower ones in the class, we do see a lot of higher end ones here in terms of their year 4 counterparts in reality. So that's actually top 15 is Amari Cooper at 14.4 in his 4th season. Also in that range, Curtis Samuel, Calvin Ridley, Juju Smith-Schuster, his teammate Brandon Ayuk, Michael Pittman, we see again all kind of in that 14 to 15.5 fantasy points per game range. So that's what you can expect for a ceiling outcome. This profile, for whatever reason, really does like Jacob Cowing to be a year 4 breakout, which, super good for fantasy managers if they want to hang on to him until year 4 to see that breakout or to have it realized. But kind of interesting seeing that with the later round draft pick, somebody that you can still maybe get a little bit excited for in some of your later round draft picks. And if you can keep them on your taxi squad a long time, Jacob Cowing might be one of those guys worth a wait for a few seasons. All right, that's going to do it for today's rookie prospect profile on Jacob Cowing. Hopefully you learned a little bit. This is presented by Zilla Fantasy Elite. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.